So in today's video, we are going to be discussing the teaser video that Tyreek Hill released for his new podcast. Now, before we get in the video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and let's jump right into the video. So obviously, as you know, Tyreek Hill released about a minute-long teaser video for his new podcast, It Needed to Be Said. And all the comments I'm going to be making are only based off of what we know from the teaser. So whatever Tyreek Hill said before and after the comments that we know specifically in the teaser video that he released, we don't know what was said. And the only thing we have to base his comments on or what he said in that teaser video. Now, this isn't me being petty. This is just me trying to drive a conversation because Tyreek Hill has been bringing a lot of content to this offseason. But I also wanted to point out some things that were said because some of the things that were said just really didn't make sense in that teaser video. Now, Tyreek Hill may refute all those in the actual video himself. And no, it really does seem like Tyreek Hill wants a bit of attention this offseason. I mean, he did kind of tweet it out that, hey, I got your attention. But before we get into the comments, let's roll the video of what was said in that teaser.
Well, and once the season was over, we reached out to the Chiefs and we said, hey, we want to keep it going. Tyreek wanted to be there. Tyreek wanted to be in Kansas City.
That's you say that again. Tyreek wanted to be in KC.
Wanted to be in Kansas City.
Wanted to be in KC.
We tried to do an extension with them.
Tried, man.
So I got a follow-up question on that. All right. So this wasn't a situation that you demanded a crazy amount of money, right?
No,
this was a situation where you know what you're capable of. Drew knows what you're capable of.
Correct.
The team knows what you're capable of, but they just didn't utilize you. Now follow up on that.
Right.
Do you think this was a situation to suppress his stats, to drop that value down when it came to a potential trade or assignment?
So as you can see, there was some pretty weird and shady things, in my opinion, that were said by Tyreek Hill and his agent. And let's be honest, the co-host really did not help much with the video and the teaser because the co-host was asking kind of some very far-fetching, reaching questions when it came to Tyreek Hill and his time in Kansas City. Like I said, I'm not trying to be petty. I love Tyreek Hill, but there were some really outlandish things, I guess you could say, in that teaser video that, again, it's obviously there to drive attention and get people to watch it. But at the same time, some of it was just kind of weird. The first thing they mention is Tyreek Hill and his extension. Yes, the Chiefs and Tyreek Hill were working on an extension this offseason, but obviously Davante Adams getting paid in Las Vegas after being traded from the Green Bay Packers completely changed how much money the Chiefs were able to get Tyreek Hill because Davante Adams got a huge lump sum, a huge amount in Las Vegas that the Chiefs really weren't able to afford that because at that point, Tyreek Hill was looking to become the highest paid wide receiver because if Tyreek Hill wanted to stay in Kansas City, he had all the power in his hands. The Chiefs offered Tyreek Hill an extension this offseason, and Tyreek Hill, like I said, had all the power to stay in Kansas City, and he chose not to. He chose to go to Miami. Now the Chiefs traded him to Miami. That's pretty obvious there. But obviously the Miami Dolphins were willing to give Tyreek Hill that money after he was traded there. So Tyreek Hill did have a chance to stay in Kansas City before he requested a trade and then ended up in Miami. And so that part is kind of shady in my opinion. Tyreek Hill could have stayed in Kansas City because he did mention that he did want to stay. But again, he could have stayed in Kansas City. He just wanted more money. And then the co-host did mention that Tyreek Hill and ask him if he was demanding a ton of money. And Tyreek Hill kind of said no before the co-host continued to speak and continued to go on. But again, if it wasn't about the money, he could have stayed in Kansas City because Tyreek Hill had a press conference when he did join the Miami Dolphins saying that $30 million really spoke to him basically, and that, when somebody offers you that much money, your feelings can change no matter how tough the situation is. So this was about the money. I don't understand that part of it. This was all about the money. Tyreek Hill, like we said, could have stayed in Kansas City. The Chiefs offered him money to stay. He just saw that the Dolphins were going to give him more money, and the Chiefs really weren't going to be able to afford what he wanted after Davante Adams got paid by the Raiders. So that's how that situation changed when it came to Tyreek Hill and his contract extension. It's not like Kansas City didn't want him there. Tyreek Hill just became way too expensive, and the Chiefs just couldn't afford him anymore. And then this is when the interview, the teaser, kind of went off the rails really quickly for me personally when it came to the teaser, at least. Now, again, we don't know the full context of everything that's happened with Tyreek Hill in this podcast, this interview. We don't know the full story yet. But there was some really blatantly dumb questions, in my opinion, that were asked and that were said, because the co-host asked if Tyreek Hill was not being utilized correctly by the Chiefs, which in my opinion is a very dumb question to ask. That question made absolutely no sense to me whatsoever, that the Chiefs weren't utilizing Tyreek Hill correctly, because since 2017, Tyreek Hill has been the top guy, the top wide receiver for the Chiefs since 2017. Like, he's been the number one guy, the number one receiver, that the go-to guy since 2017. So not being utilized correctly, first of all, just doesn't make sense for his time that Tyreek Hill had in Kansas City, because he's, like I said, the number one guy that the Chiefs have had. Also, Tyreek Hill has had 1,000 yards in 4 of his 5 seasons since 2017. He probably would have had a 1,000-yard season in 2019 had he not got hurt. So Tyreek Hill was constantly producing big numbers in the receiving yard category, and his production was very high. So utilized correctly doesn't make sense. And then for this past season not being utilized correctly makes absolutely no sense, because Tyreek Hill literally set a career high in targets and receptions this past year with Kansas City. And yeah, the Chiefs offense did struggle, whatever, but Tyreek Hill was still the number one guy, the guy that Patrick Mahomes, his go-to guy, his go-to receiver all year long. So that question, we really don't know Tyreek Hill's response necessarily about that. That was asked by the co-host, so I don't want to put words into Tyreek Hill's mouth, but that was a stupid question, and that was just a flat out lie about the Chiefs not utilizing him correctly. So that part just does not make sense to me whatsoever. Yeah, the Chiefs struggled in the second half of the AFC Championship game, but you can't have one half of a conference championship game to say that he was underutilized or not utilized correctly. That just doesn't make any sense to me. And then they also asked about the Chiefs suppressing Tyreek Hill's stats when it came to a potential trade, and that part was really dumb too. Like, that question made absolutely no sense. First of all, why would the Chiefs try to suppress Tyreek Hill's stats? He's the best wide receiver on the team. He's our go-to guy. He was the number one guy that helped lead this offense, give a huge spark to this offense, our big play guy. So why in the world would the Chiefs suppress Tyreek Hill's stats? That makes absolutely no sense. Like, why in the world would the Chiefs suppress Tyreek Hill's stats, especially in the biggest game that they're playing of the entire year, in the AFC Championship game against the Bengals? Now, we don't know the time frame that they're talking about, but the most recent game was against the Bengals. And why would the Chiefs suppress Tyreek Hill's stats for a potential trade and lower his value when they're one game away from making it to their 3rd straight Super Bowl? That's what doesn't make sense to me. Why would they suppress Tyreek Hill's stats? It just absolutely makes no sense to me why the Chiefs would try to suppress his stats when it came to a trade. Because why? And then also, why would the Chiefs try to ruin Tyreek Hill's trade value? Like, that makes no sense. Obviously, Tyreek Hill was going to be expensive no matter what happened this season. Like, Tyreek Hill would have had to have had a disaster of a season to not get paid. And Tyreek Hill, even when he struggled, still had a very good regular season. He was great for the Chiefs in the playoffs. So even if the Chiefs were just going to use the second half against the Bengals to suppress his stats and ruin his trade value, that's not enough to absolutely tank Tyreek Hill's trade value. So I don't understand that part at all. The Chiefs would have never been able, there's not enough time in the world at the time of the season. So the only thing we can think about is the AFC Championship game, and one half of football isn't going to stop Tyreek Hill from getting paid, and it's not going to tank his trade value. So first of all, the Chiefs would be hurting themselves by tanking Tyreek Hill's stats, because they're taking out their best player on the football field. So why would they do that? That part makes absolutely no sense to me. And then why would they suppress his trade value? Because obviously we had a situation this offseason where the wide receiver market went absolutely crazy. Now, we didn't know that at the time of the championship game, so that's why that question just makes no sense even more, because we had no idea what was going to happen with guys like Christian Kirk, guys like Devontae Adams. We didn't know they were going to get paid like crazy, so the Chiefs had no indication that, hey, let's tank Tyreek Hill's stats and destroy his trade value, because at that time the Chiefs still thought that Tyreek Hill was going to be on the team. So that part makes no sense whatsoever. That's basically, that question is indicating that the Chiefs knew what was going to happen this offseason with the wide receiver market, and that's just not true. Like, nobody in the right mind knew what was going to happen this offseason with the wide receiver market. And then at the same time, why would they tank his trade value? Because if the Chiefs weren't going to be able to afford Tyreek Hill, why would they tank his value? Wouldn't they want his value to be as high as possible, so that way if he does end up getting traded like he did to the Dolphins, they can get as much in return as they did? They got 5 draft picks in return for Tyreek Hill. they obviously want to get as much back from Tyreek Hill as they possibly can. So that part of the question made no sense. Now this part, obviously that was a question directed by the co-host. That wasn't necessarily Tyreek Hill, but it was his podcast with his agent, who are all saying really silly things in my opinion. But that one was just mind-numbing because the Chiefs, even if they were going to extend Tyreek Hill, suppressing his stats for one half of the AFC Championship game, whatever it was, whatever he's talking about, because his stats were never suppressed, it did not matter what happened, in my opinion, in the playoffs. Tyreek Hill was still going to demand a lot of money. Like, obviously, the Chiefs were working on an extension. It would have been a pretty hefty extension, but then obviously they just could not afford him anymore because they still had holes to fill on the other parts of the team. So that's why this whole situation, that teaser, really just didn't make any sense in my opinion. That teaser really just does a lot of things that didn't make sense in it. And I still love Tyreek Hill. I love what he did in Kansas City. Again, there's this podcast teaser is again just him looking for attention in my opinion, but there's just a lot of things that teaser just does not make sense in my mind, just doesn't make sense to anybody, because the Chiefs, why would they tank their own team? I think they would have rather had Tyreek Hill during that playoff run last year win a Super Bowl, and then we move on from him, and then we rebuild the team like we did. So none of this just makes sense. None of these questions, suppressing his stats, tanking his trade value. I mean, Tyreek Hill in a way was demanding more money because he could have stayed in Kansas City. And if he wanted to stay in Kansas City, the power was in him, in his hands to stay in KC. But those are just my thoughts on the Tyreek Hill teaser video. We may make a video once the full podcast comes out. I'll decide then what to do. But give me your thoughts down below of what you think of the teaser, and I'll see you in the next one.